Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to vinylalbumcovers.com. This is Ed, and of course, this is Slept On. You know what it is. This is the show where we talk about songs from artists that you might have missed the first time around. In this instance, not only did you miss the song, but you probably missed the group too. Like, you probably missed everything. Um, and it's not your fault. Um, yeah, so I'll explain. The group, as you can see in the title, is called For Xample. That name, um, terrible name. Such a terrible name for such a great group. Um, but anyway, the group was a group of four guys from LA. BC Chevis, Raymond Chevis, his brother, Lucius Woodard, and then Dre Allen. I am looking at notes here to try to remember names. There was very little information about this group when I looked on the internet, but I dug up what I could because there are a couple of things that they did that are just phenomenal. You're about to hear one of them during this episode. But they are four guys from LA, and they had a song called The Swang, which is not the one we will be going over. But they had this song that they'd recorded, and it started to pick up some traction in various areas of the country. The radio programmer, Maurice DeVoe from 92.3 The Beat. I have notes here. I have notes everywhere. But I have notes on my bedroom wall. No, I'm kidding. It's not that serious. But I do know that DJ. I remember him, and he actually debuted the song, and it kind of went everywhere, like as far as from LA to Chicago to New York. The song kind of went everywhere, and it got the attention of an executive over at MCA Records. And this is the part where I will cheat, named Ernie Singleton. I do remember the name, but anyway, Ernie signed them to MCA Records. There was a bidding war. I remember Virgin Records wanted them, Giant Records wanted them, and MCA wanted them. Those were the three labels that wanted them. And so anyway, MCA won. They decided to go over there instead. And not a bad idea, really. I mean, it's not like, because at that point, Virgin had had very little success with R&B. That's nothing they were good at. They had After Seven, and they started well with After Seven, but they really couldn't keep it going for them. So Virgin, while not a terrible idea for After Seven, probably wasn't the best idea. And I think they've even talked about that. And they had Gary Taylor initially. He put out his first record on Virgin, and that went absolutely nowhere. They just didn't know what they were doing. And Virgin was not the place for, if you were an R&B, certainly if you were an R&B vocal group, that's not the place you went. Giant was more successful at that point. They were kind of this upstart label that was having success on the R&B charts with the Color Me Bad and oh geez, see this, I'm telling you, don't get old. It's a mistake. It just fight it with everything you have, because then your memory just goes. And it was the label owned by Irving Azoff, and they ended up doing, I remember they had Voices That Care on it. Do you remember that one-off charity single for the Gulf War? But they put that out. I can see the name of the girl that they signed. Jeremy Jordan is one that they signed. He was kind of like a teen pop R&B kind of thing. He didn't do anything for me, but that's okay. He was briefly successful. And they had, who else did Giant have? There was an R&B female vocal group full of white girls called Good to Go. You remember the song Never Satisfied? Yeah, they had that. Stanley Brown wrote that. So they had them, and that song did well, but nothing else did. So Giant was kind of like Virgin. They were good at getting you started, but they weren't good at keeping it going. Like the second albums that would follow these acts didn't do really anything. Color Me Bad can attest to this, because Time and Chance did nothing. All they were good for was CMB, and that was really it. And it's a shame too, because there is more good music, but we never heard it because it's like they just stopped promoting. They could not figure out how to sustain careers. They could only get them started. So in terms of the math with regard to, which label to sign with, I think their math was decent. The only problem is that others had done that math too, and there were a lot of artists that were on MCA, like a lot of them at that point. I mean, Jodeci was huge, and they were signed to MCA. It was a lot of, Mary J. Blige. There were a lot of, and my memory's failing me, but we know there were a lot of acts that were signed to MCA at that point. There were a good amount of R&B vocal groups. There was, like I said, there was Jodeci, there was Boys to Men, there was Portrait, there was Shy. Shy was signed to the Gasoline Alley subsidiary of MCA. There was All for One, there was UNV, remember them? Something's Going On, Straight From My Heart. That should be a slept on episode because y'all slept on UNV, darn it, and they had good stuff. But there were just many vocal groups around at that point, many. There were so many of them. There were so many, you could just shake a stick at them. And so they just, unfortunately, for example, came around at the wrong time, but they did have a champion with Ernie Singleton. But the problem is, and this is interesting, actually, before we talk about the problem here, we're going to go ahead and listen to this song. And after we listen to the song, we're going to talk about what went wrong. Now, there are a couple of different versions of this. There is the radio edit, and it has a video, and it would be kind of cool to look at the video. But I'm gonna, let's listen to we're gonna listen to the album version. It is longer. This may get a little lengthy, so bear with me. It's a good story to tell, especially if you're kind of entering the music business. There are potholes that they fell into, and we'll talk about them after we listen to the tune. So anyway, this is From the Fool. By For Example. Now, From the Fool, let me explain who wrote it and all that stuff. I'll get technical. It was produced by Ricky Smith, and it was written by Lainey Stewart and Tony Haynes and Cucurell, and all of them continue to work to this day. And they all worked together a lot, too. Lainey Stewart and Tony Haynes wrote a lot of songs together, just for numerous R&B artists, like, Shantae Moore and many others. She's just the one I'm coming up with. They wrote something for Louis Price roughly around that same time, who was signed to Motown, distributed by MCA. Did MCA have every R&B act? Just crazy the amount of work they were doing. Also, keep an eye out. The song is interesting in that it has a real sitar in it. Most times you'd get like a sitar sound. They'd use like an Ensoniq keyboard to sample it. But there's a real sitar in this particular song, or if not a real sitar, at least one from an effects pedal, which is probably what happened now that I'm looking at it. But the guitar and the sitar were both played by Paul Jackson Jr., who's just, he's triple scale. Like, he's the guy that you hire when you want to get it done, and you want to get it done well and quickly. And they probably paid a mint for him to come in and do it. He's incredible, though. And the rest of it was done by Ricky Smith, all the programming and all that. So anyway, the song, I know, Ed, get to the song. I'm about to get to the song because y'all need to hear this song. I'm trying to tell you, this is amazing. You're going to hear this and wonder what happened. And when you wonder, I'm going to tell you. So let's go ahead and listen. This is From the Fool by For Xample. I still hate that name. Anyway, let's get it. In 3, 2, 1. There's that sitar. Oh, that wasn't there. The chords, though. Come on, chords.
I can't sleep at night, wondering about you now.
It's a Dre Allen, if you're curious.
Feeling all alone. I wrote a letter.
Nice tone.
It says I was wrong, and I need you in my life. So can't we make up and make things right? Ain't no use in denying
This is Lucius.
that I can love you better than another could.
Interesting bit of doubling there. I have to mention these things because I'll forget. Sorry.
So tell me that it reached you. It's from the fool that you get away. This is from the fool who's missing you every day. I'm missing you. I thought it was cool not to beg you to stay. This is from the fool that you get away. Check it out. I know that you're mine,
Nice
and
two-part.
that you care. How can you
I
forget
think that's BC.
the times we shared? I know that you're not seeing anyone. Oh, you can't commit to love, and you're missing me too. Ain't no use in denying that we should be together now and forever. Girl, I just can't get over you. Sincerely,
Clean with his rhymes.
it's true.
Double.
From the fool that you get away. From the fool missing you every day. You know I'm missing you. It was cool not to beg you to stay. No, I'm begging you. From the fool that you get away.
A bridge.
How could I be so cruel not to give you love? I love you. Yes, I do. If my letter won't do, yeah, I'll write it in the sky too. Baby girl, I guess it's cool for me to say that I need you in my life, 'cause I have to show you. And I guess that's what's most important, is that I show you
Light
that I need
fringe
you and want
on
you.
the talking part.
And that I've got
Very
to
light
have.
fringe. Even some stereo
I know I
effect.
made mistakes, but as I grow, I learn. And as I learn, I grow. And I just want to tell you, baby, I've grown to love you more and more every day. Check it out.
Love that syncopation.
And I'm begging you to stay. From the
Like, come on. You heard this, yes? Of course you did, because I played it for you. Come on, though. Like, how does a song like this not hit? How does this happen? Like, that song is fire. The singing is amazing. We should also talk a bit about the way that vocal groups are often recorded. This was often the case back in the 90s, but very often you find that when vocal groups are recorded, like they'll grab the lead singer, or in this case, the lead singers. This isn't what happened here, but they'll grab the lead singer and they'll have him do the lead and do all the backgrounds too. And the rest of the group will just do it live, but they'll basically just be sitting there eating lunch or whatever, or maybe they're not even there, and the lead singer will do all the parts. That's what happened with New Edition quite often, especially when Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis started producing them. It's like all the backgrounds were done by Ralph Tresvant, all of them. There's really very little background support from anybody else for all of the tracks on the Heartbreak record. You do get Ricky and you get Johnny from time to time, but the chances of you hearing Mike or Ronnie in the background are non-existent. It's not happening. That doesn't happen, and that was commonplace for vocal groups back then. You would just basically get the lead singer doing all the backgrounds, but that didn't happen here. There's a clip of them doing. I think it's from The Fool, but they were doing it on All That. You remember the Nickelodeon show All That? They showed up there to do this song, and they were doing it live. I mean, there was a TV track behind them, just the instrumental, but they were singing live to that tape, and absolutely killing it. And there were no background vocals coming off that tape. It wasn't like your typical TV track. It was purely instrumental. There was no vocal or anything like that, and they were delivering those vocals live, and it sounded fantastic. I mean, these gentlemen could sing, like really sing. The harmonies were fantastic. So you may be wondering as I grab my sheet, because there's just so much to this. I mean, look at this. I had to do some research. There's just so little to know. And I did some research, and I'm not surprised by what I found, but if you're trying to get involved in this horrible little business, you might want to know what happened here. So anyway, I should also mention that they were managed by Dick Scott. Dick Scott was the manager for the New Kids on the Block during the height of their fame. So, I mean, they found the right guy. He knew what he was doing. Certainly if he could manage the Beatlemania-like craziness of the New Kids on the Block career, anybody else would be light work. So he was more than qualified. They found the right guy. They really did. But here's the problem. So generally, when an act begins to break, whether it be a solo act or a vocal group, what you do is you get them to tour here. I mean, they're a very American group. They're from LA. Why wouldn't you have them tour here? They're starting to develop some success, because prior to putting out the album, and the article doesn't say this, but it says that they put out the album and then put out the single, and that's not really what happened. They put out I'd Rather Be Alone in advance of the album. I remember this because I bought the cassette single for it. I heard the song and just thought, this is fire, and I had to go buy it. Just immediately I ran out to the Rekisto, if you will, Tower Records, if you're curious. I ran out there and grabbed the cassette single for it. There was only one there when I bought it, and just fell in love with the song. Garbage cassette single at all, because cassette singles were terrible. What a blight. Imagine something worse than an album copy of a cassette. This was that. You can't make cassettes any more cheaply than cassette singles. Anyway, rant for another time. But I heard that song and I loved it, and I didn't care, and it was an edit. I knew it was an edit, but it was the only way you could get it because their album wasn't out yet. So, and I actually thought about doing that for the Slept On song, but y'all didn't sleep as hard on that one as you did on From the Fool. How dare you? I'm just kidding. But but so they put that song out, and honestly, it didn't do all that well. I mean, it did okay. It peaked at, I think it peaked in the top 40. I think it peaked at number 44 on the R&B charts, which is just Robbie Neville. You remember C'est La Vie? Robbie Neville, that guy, he's playing the guitar on it. And it was produced by Steve Dubin, who worked with Robbie Neville a lot. But it's not a pop song at all. It's very R&B. And Robbie's guitar lines are very R&B too. So it's such a great song. And it didn't hit like I thought it would. I was sure this was just going to kill. As I started playing it on WPGC out here in DC. And I was sure that it was going to hit, and it didn't. I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I was blown away. And so then some time after that, after the record comes out, they send them out on the road. But instead of sending them out on the road domestically while the song's on the charts, they sent them to other countries. They sent them out to Australia and Japan and Singapore, and the record was selling out there, to be fair. Apparently it sold about 500,000 copies out there. So they sent them, like I said, to Hong Kong and Canada and those other places, and really just about everywhere. They were trying to do something different because, as we talked about earlier, there were so many vocal groups out there, and they needed to figure out a way to break, for Xample, out of the pack. And this was their way of doing it. And it was a mistake. It was really a terrible mistake, because by the time they got back here and started touring in the US, the single started to die. I mean, it wasn't doing all that well anyway, but the success of I'd Rather Be Alone started to die. And then, of course, as happens quite often, there were label politics involved, because the executives that signed them were fired. And generally what happens is when the people that sign you are fired, you're kind of left to twist in the wind all by yourself, because it's not like other A&R people or other executives will come in and try to figure out what to do with you. They'll generally just let you die, because you don't belong to them. You belong to the guy that was fired. So they won't put any work into you at all, and you'll just kind of die on the vine. But the interesting thing to notice, that's not really what happened here. What happened ultimately was that Hank Shocklee is a producer with the Bomb Squad who produced Public Enemy, but he was working for MCA at this point, and then Daddy-O decided to put out another video. But if you look at there's quite a difference between the video for I'd Rather Be Alone and for From the Fool. They're very different aesthetically. One is kind of, the one from the Fool is kind of more street oriented, I guess, for lack of a better term. They kind of come off a little bit differently. So I'm going to play you that video now. We're going to watch a couple things in this one. So bear with me. I know this is getting a little long, but don't say I didn't warn you. But here's the video for From the Fool. We're going to watch this together, okay? So I'm going to click it in 3, 2, 1. Gotta sync it.
I can't sleep at night, wondering about you now, feeling all alone. I wrote a letter. It says I was wrong, and I need you in my life. So can we make up?
Take note of the way they look here. They're very much like, they look very much like every other vocal group. Really, their aesthetic is the same. It's, it looks good though. It's classy, but it does kind of have a little bit more of a street vibe to it. I'm digging it though. I haven't seen this before. Not all the way through.
I know that you're mine. Let
I was wrong about who the second verse was being sung by. It was Dre. I'm sorry, guys. Don't get old. Those were two different voices. Show me what I know. See what I mean? No info. Struggling. This is singful right there. Just saying. Goodness. Very Brian McKnight. I'm not mad at it at all, though. Love his tone when it gets there. I can talk a little more here because you've already heard the song, right? Can't I? Is that okay? Oh, good. Okay, cool. I love that. My gosh. Hill on the Run. And it suits the lyric. It's not just a run for run's sake either. Yes. Yes. So much yes. Never get tired of that. They cut the talking section out. They had to do something. See, like we had to listen to the whole thing because we miss so much of it this way. Okay, so we have to play this. We have to play now that we've seen from the Fool. Now we have to watch I'd Rather Be Alone together. You don't mind, do you? You didn't have anything else to do. If you did, you can pause this and then come back to it later. I would advise against it though. But anyway, let's dive in. This is I'd Rather Be Alone by For Example. And this is, like I said before, remember this is what was on the cassette single. So it is a radio edit. And I don't know that I haven't seen this video either. I haven't seen frame 1 of this video. So let's get this in. Let's get it in and see what we think.
Just isn't fair, 'cause I still care. Although I love you, girl, I'd rather be alone. I'd rather be alone. You want me to forgive you. You said please understand. Girl, you made me a fool.
This is BC, I believe. BC Chavez.
You don't know how it hurts me.
See, they look classier here. You notice?
That I was wrong.
Don't get mad at me for talking. I have to here.
I
Sorry.
gave you my heart. You were just playing
I'll
me
do as little as
all
possible, though.
along. Too late to work it out.
I see, no,
'Cause I know my mind's filled
a little
with
dressier.
much doubt.
The look is different.
To ever try it again, I guess deep down I know you'll have to go, but it just
He could just sing his face off. My gosh. I love his voice. He's not so bad either, is he? You better get it.
When I think of the times we were together, girl, I just cry. I still love you after all the things you've done.
Intonation is just dead on. Just dead on. I can't with him.
Baby, I thought that you were the one. Yeah. We can't work it out.
His voice is a little deeper. Just a little bit.
With too much doubt to ever try it again. I guess deep down I know you'll have to go, but it just isn't fair. 'Cause I still care. Although I love you, girl, I'd rather be alone. I'd rather be alone.
Harmonies are killing me. Yeah. They cut the end of the chorus off to get him.
Girl, we can't work it out. 'Cause I know that my heart's filled with too much doubt to ever try it again, baby. 'Cause deep down I know you have to go. It's not fair. 'Cause I still care.
I'm in my happy place. Yeah.
I'd rather be alone. I'd rather be alone. I know it's wrong. I can't go on. Although I'll miss you, girl, I'd rather be alone. I'd rather be alone. Just isn't fair. 'Cause I still care. Although I love you, girl,
Gorgeous, right? Just gorgeous. Okay, fine. So this turned into 2 songs. I don't care. I don't think you do either. When they're this good, so what, right? I couldn't decide between the 2 of them. I thought I had decided, but I lied. I hadn't decided. They're both so incredible for different reasons. But what's really interesting, and the reason that I played both of those videos like that, is to show you the difference in the 2 approaches. At first, with I'd Rather Be Alone, you're clearly seeing one vision, and then by the time they get to From the Fool, you're seeing another. It's a little more raw. They're dressed very differently. The aesthetic is different. It's a little more street, not crazy street or anything, but it's a little more that way. They kind of come off a bit more like Boys to Men in I'd Rather Be Alone, and kind of more like Jodeci in From the Fool. Not all the way Jodeci, but certainly more that way. So the aesthetic was a bit different, and it kind of threw the radio programmers off, and it threw off the video programmers, and they kind of didn't know what to do. It's like, wait a minute, we thought you were this, and you turned into this. Because Hank Shockley and Daddy-O weren't originally involved. They came in later. So people got a bit confused with the video. This what I'm reading here calls it a drastic change in approach, but I don't know that it was that drastic, but it was different, and it did throw the video programmers specifically for a loop. I can't imagine it would throw radio programmers for a loop, because I mean, when the tunes were done, it was, I think the management was the same, and the executives were the same throughout the recording of the record. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think so. There are other tunes on that album, like the stuff that they did with Jen, that are far more street than either of the 2 songs we played here today on this episode. So I don't know that that's the case, but either way, they kind of got panicked, Hank and Daddy-O and the label, because they were trying to save them. Unfortunately, From the Fool only peaked at number 90 on the R&B charts, which is just a disaster. Especially, I mean, if you remember the video from the Fool, we just watched it. That could not have been a cheap video to shoot. I mean, they didn't go across seas to film it or anything like that. But that cost something, and the promotion Yeah, that's all coming from a promotional budget that probably went completely into the red. I mean, number 90 on the R&B charts is not good. It's really not good. And I mean, coupled with the number 44 showing of I'd Rather Be Alone, not so good. This is not going well here. Um, and so they were trying to make it work for them, which I give MCA a lot of credit for, because then they sent them into the studio to work with Babyface to kind of try to salvage this. And Babyface, of course, was white hot at that point. Just he was working with everybody, but we already know the deal. We don't need to go over who he was working with. We're well aware. And they started working on a record, but before they could finish it, other things began to happen. Just weird stuff. Like I remember the article that's in front of me, I remember it mentioned that they offered Gasoline Alley, which was a subsidiary of MCA. Gasoline Alley is the group that signed Shy, the production company / record label that signed Shy, tried to sign Dre Allen to a record label, to their record label. They tried to sign him away from for Xample. And I can't stand that name. But they tried to sign him away. And he thought about it for a couple of seconds and went, nah, he wouldn't go for it. And so the group was back together. But then, unfortunately, B.C. Chavez, who was a new father, and all of a sudden had a lot more responsibility here in the real world than just in a singing group. And Gasoline Alley ended up approaching him. And he's got a great voice. I mean, they both do. He's got such a good voice, and great even. But they approached him, and because of his life responsibilities, he couldn't refuse, and he bit and made a terrible mistake, because his career went nowhere in terms of singing. This was not a good move for him. And certainly not a good move for the group, because he left the group and then that was it. The group just kind of broke up. And they had this meeting, and, unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it went. So down goes the group. Apparently they reformed about 15 years after the fact. In 2010 they reformed. But I'm not aware that much of anything came of that, which is unfortunate. But such a great group. But I wanted to share all of that with you, to kind of show what can happen when a record label doesn't have its thing together. And more than anything, what happens when executives get fired. I mean, this could make for a very interesting unsung episode on TV1. Like all the twists and turns. And I mean, I know there's no drug abuse or anything like that, so TV1's not gonna use that. But I think it's a very interesting story with some twists and turns, and interesting in kind of a heartbreaking way, because they're great, and it's just such a shame that their careers kind of ground to a halt because of that. They fired the executives that had a vision for the group, and then Hank and Daddy-O tried to come in and fix it, and they couldn't do it. They just changed their whole aesthetic, and the video program was, wait a minute, what? And they just couldn't follow it. And then before they could get that second record recorded, BC had real life responsibilities, and he made a mistake and walked away from the group. And I mean, who knows if that second record hits? Don't know. We'll never know, because we've never heard any of it. But it's such a shame that happened. Just such a talented group with great singing, and in a couple of instances the songs were there. I do have the original, the only For Example album that there is, titled For Example, like said properly. And the record is okay. It's not great. There's a bit of an identity crisis thing going on with it, but those two songs have no apologies to make, and you could certainly build the success of an album off those two tunes. I don't know, it just kind of fell apart. So I dug up a lot of information. I was surprised to find what I found. So hopefully this was interesting to watch. I apologize for its length. I generally try not to make videos this long, but slept-ons this long. But here we are. It's long, and I'm sorry. But I hope you enjoyed it. I just had to tell the whole story because it's a very interesting story, and I wanted to give for Xample their flowers because just they're fantastic, and they just got missed in the glut of R&B groups that were around at that point. It's such a shame, and they're not the only ones. There are others too, and over time I know I'll cover some others. So anyway, again, thank you very much for watching this episode of Slept On, this very lengthy episode of Slept On. I have I've got an idea here, maybe putting these up in audio form. What would you think if I did that? Sound off in the comments and let me know, because I can do that. If you'd like me to do it, I will. If you'd rather I also put these up in audio form, I can do it. We have the technology. So let me know. If you want me to do that, I will. But yeah, if you like the video, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. You know the one, this thing. Why I don't need to put up a pink finger. You know what a thumbs up is, darn it. Looks like this. So go ahead and hit that for me. I would greatly appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. There's more videos coming all the time. I've actually got another one on my brain right now, and I'm probably going to do it back to back. So you'll see this shirt again. You like this shirt anyway, don't you? Well, you're going to see it again. Maybe I'll put a tie on, but I probably won't. Anyway, so hit subscribe and hit the bell notification so you'll know when these videos drop. That would be greatly appreciated. Helps the algorithm, you see. And thank you to all the subscribers. Let me see where we are now. It's always fun to look at this, just to see the incredible support that you guys are giving me. It's just amazing. I'm refreshing the screen now so I can give you up to the minute, you see. But let me see, what have we got here for subscribers? I need the dashboard. Let's see. Looking at the dashboard, 118 subscribers. You guys over here. That's amazing. Thank you so much. That's so cool. We're on the road to 200. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Get me to 200. Let's get us to 200. Because this is all of us. This is a victory for all of us. How much fun is this? 118. I'm feeling that. Thank you very much. And we're always in the green with increase. So that's due to y'all. So thank you very, very much for watching this stuff. I appreciate it. These are fun videos to do, but they're not fun if you're not watching them. So thank you for playing with me. Much appreciated. Anyway, this video has gone on forever, ever. So I'm going to end this video. Thank you very much for watching Slept On. Much appreciated as always. Stay tuned for the next one. And until we get to it, keep listening to great music.